Okay, a quick talk on the end of the world. We thought everything would end on 2020 Tishri 14, the late third Abrahamic Passover. And we thought, incorrectly, that Zoa would end on 2020 Elul 14. But you can't have a Passover unless you've got a Passover house. And the Passover house is Zoa. So the final Passover of Abraham, the late third Abrahamic, which is on 2020 Tishri 14, must occur in Zoa. So Zoa must continue until Tishri 14. Furthermore, the last day of, the wonderful understanding we finally got, which is that the final atonement between God and man, which must be coincident with the Jubilee release day, because it's the final Jubilee restoration of Adam to his previous Edenic, non-Adamic estate, where he had a body that didn't age in Eden, and God restores everybody. Whatever we lose due to our sin and our negligence and our recklessness and our naivety and our wickedness, whatever we lose, God works until he gets us back to what we've lost. Doesn't matter whether it's our life, doesn't matter whether it's our indefinitely non-aging living bodies, whatever it is, our relatives, they will all be resurrected, our loved ones. There's nothing we lose that God will not retrieve for us. And one of the big examples of that is Adam. And Adam has to be restored on a Jubilee, because the Jubilee is to do with restoring. In Israel, if you got into trouble, you could not sell the freehold of your house, you could sell a lease till the Jubilee, and then you got the thing back at the Jubilee. And if you sold yourself as a slave, you got released actually at the Sabbath, not at the Jubilee. So you can only be a slave for at most 7 years, and you can only lose your estate, your house, for at most 50 years. And this is what happens to Adam. So Adam has to be restored on a Jubilee. And it also is going to be an atonement, because when Adam is restored, he's atoned with God. So to get the two to match, Jubilee release date of Tishri 10, every 50th month, and that being the Jubilee release month being an atonement day, happens every 25 years. And the next one is 2020 Tishri 10, and that is when the final Edenic Jubilee restoration of Adam occurs. And the way that occurs is by entering into Zoa, because Zoa is the place where people who enter in become non-Adamic. So Zoa must continue till Tishri 10. So Zoa entry continues till Tishri 10. But then we know from 1 Kings 18 verse 40 that 450 prophets of Baal are seized. Let not a man escape from them. And a man stands for a month. So there's 1 month of no escape for those guys. So the last 30 days of the 450 days of those 450 prophets, which is 15 months, 30 days in the month, runs from Tishri 10 to Heshvan 10. So what that means is the end of kingdom seizing, which is 1 month after the end of Zoa entry, is Heshvan 10. That is the last possible day you can be seized for the kingdom. And then the final execution always happens on the 14th of the month. So that will be the 14th of Heshvan. Now that isn't a Passover. There's no Passover house. That is just a straight execution. So let me explain what happens now at the end. On Ab 14, 2020, the firstborn sons of everybody in the private sector dies, killed by Passover execution unless they join Zoa. Sorry, public sector, Ab 14. Then on Elul 14, the firstborn sons of everybody in the private sector dies unless they join Zoa. And then on Tishri 14, the firstborn sons of everybody in the prisons of this world, whatever that means, I suppose it means in the prisons, will die unless they join Zoa, and there'll be a means in the prison to do that. But that doesn't kill everybody. These are all warning shots from God to get your act together and get saved. If you don't get your act together and get into Zoa by Tishri 10, you can still be saved up to Heshvan 10. But if you don't get saved by then on Heshvan 14, everybody who's not been seized for the kingdom, which means you've either joined it or you've been proactively taken by people in Zoa and asked if you want to join, and you've said yes. If you've not decided to join the kingdom by then, by Heshvan 10, then on Heshvan 14, 2020, which is I think November the 3rd, 4th, you're executed and you go to hell, where you will stay until you're repentant. Or if you're not repentant, you'll stay there for 1,000 years and then be let out. So it's important for us to understand that the end of failed Adam, the end of Adam who didn't get saved, the end of the world, the end of people who are going to hell still being on the planet, the day when all the ones who aren't going to make it into the kingdom are physically removed, that day is Heshvan14, 2020, which is November 3rd, 4th, 2020. And there's a mirror between what happens in 2020 and what happens in 2019. So Heshvan14, 2019 is the beginning of what Daniel 12 describes as the time of distress, which is the time of thick gloom and when the stars won't give their light. And the reason they don't do that and the sun is darkened and the moon turns to blood is because the atmosphere is full of ash from a volcano. So we expect a massive volcanic eruption now on Heshvan14, and today is Heshvan3 now, so it's in 11 days time, today being November the 4th, so it's November the 15th, 16th. That's when the time of distress begins. The other thing is World War III begins Heshvan5, which is in 2-3 days time, and it may not seem like World War III when it begins, but it will turn into World War III, according to our latest chronology. And the Americans lose, and the British lose that battle to the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians, who are on the side of the BRICS, basically. It's BRICS against NATO, this. They lose that battle by Heshvan14 because one of the 7 heads of the beast of Revelation 13 from the sea gets a death stroke, and one of 7 is a witness to 7 times, and heads is divine headship, and the beast runs out of headship on the dragon's earthly Passover on 2020 Sivan 14, and 7 months prior to that is Heshvan 14. That is when the Americans and the British lose conventionally World War III. We then surrender, which is a very wise move. The Americans don't, and it ends up becoming nuclear on Heshvan 22, 23, 7-8 days later, and that evens the score a bit, but it ends up with a nuclear winter, which is a total and utter disaster. And it's so diabolical that it ends all wars, and the purpose of God allowing it is for us to learn the lesson that war is obsolete and we should not fight it anymore. It's not the correct way to resolve an international problem. You have to do it lawfully. War, what's that wonderful expression? War doesn't determine who's right, it determines who's left. And even those who are left, if it's a nuclear war, it's not very good. So we used to think end of everything was 2020 Tishri 14. We now understand it to be 2020 Heshvan 14. And we think that has to be correct. Let's add this one more important rider. Because the time of distress does not begin until Heshvan 14, and because we're predicting fire signs of 1 Kings 18, second and third fire signs, to be large explosive attacks in London and Manhattan, or east of London near Dartford and over the Hudson in Manhattan, for Heshvan 7-8, it means that they will not be nuclear, because if they were nuclear they'd cause a time of distress, and it's before the time of distress. So the 2 fire signs, I'm very, very glad to be able to say that the 2 fire signs of 1 Kings 18 that we've been predicting, we predict them for Heshvan 7-8, which is November 8, 9, 10. We're predicting one to be a large explosion over the Thames round about Dartford, and the other to be a large explosion over the Hudson round about the George Washington Bridge or somewhere like that. Those 2 attacks will be part of World War III, but they will not be nuclear. They'll just be large conventional explosive, and they'll make a big mushroom cloud, but not a nuclear cloud. Thank you.